Think about the last time someone you trusted disappointed you with money. Not a stranger. Someone close. A friend you lent to who never paid back. A partner who made decisions that affected both of you without asking. A family member who revealed, in one quiet moment, that the relationship had terms you never agreed to. And in that moment, something shifted, not just in how you saw them, but in how you saw the world. Like a filter you'd been wearing without knowing it had suddenly been pulled away. Here's the question most people never ask: is money actually corrupting people, or is it simply revealing who they already were? That question matters more than you think. Because the answer changes everything about how you move through life, who you trust, what you build, and whether you end up bitter or wise by the time the world is done with you. There's a man Niccolò Machiavelli wrote about, not a king, not a villain, just a politician in Renaissance Florence who spent 30 years believing that loyalty and goodwill were the only currencies worth having. He shared everything. He trusted openly. He threw banquets and funded friendships and gave generously to those who came to him in need. He believed that if you were generous enough, honest enough, decent enough, the world would return that decency to you. Then the money ran dry. And in the span of one season, almost everyone who had surrounded him vanished. Not dramatically. Not with betrayal and speeches and confrontation. They simply stopped returning letters. Found other rooms to sit in. Smiled when they passed him in the street and kept walking. Machiavelli watched this happen, to others, and eventually to himself. He was imprisoned. He was exiled. He watched men he had called friends step carefully around him as though proximity to his misfortune might be contagious. And from that experience, stripped of everything, he sat down and started writing. Not out of bitterness exactly, though some of that was in there. But out of a cold, clear-eyed determination to understand the world as it actually was, not as he had wished it to be. He drew conclusions that the world called ruthless, that history called cynical, and that psychology would eventually call brutally accurate. So let's talk about what he actually discovered. Not the cartoon villain version. The real observations. The 7 brutal truths about money and power that most people spend their whole lives avoiding, until life forces them to confront every single one. The first truth is the one that stings the most: people don't respond to who you are. They respond to what you represent. When you have resources, influence, access, people orient toward you the way a plant orients towards sunlight. It's not personal. It's not even conscious in most cases. It's just how human social systems have always worked. We are wired to move toward utility. And when that utility disappears, so does the warmth. This doesn't mean everyone around you is secretly calculating. Most aren't. Most people genuinely like you when you're useful. The painful part is understanding that genuine and conditional are not opposites. Someone can genuinely enjoy your company and still quietly drift away the moment your circumstances change. Machiavelli didn't call this betrayal. He called it human nature. And there's a strange freedom in learning not to take it personally, to stop expecting the warmth to be unconditional when you never actually tested whether it was. The second truth is this: generosity without strategy is just a slow way to drain yourself. You've probably seen this pattern. The person who gives and gives and gives, who never says no, who believes that being endlessly available will build loyalty, and then discovers that people don't value what comes easily. Not because they're ungrateful, but because the human mind assigns worth based on scarcity and effort. What you give freely is, psychologically, already devalued in the receiving. There is something in us that equates ease with disposability. The friend who always picks up the phone starts to feel like furniture, always there, never truly noticed. This is not a flaw in the people around you. It is a feature of the way human perception works. And once you understand it, you stop resenting it and start working with it. This is not permission to become withholding or cold. It's an invitation to be intentional. Machiavelli's observation wasn't that you should stop giving, it was that you should understand what giving actually does inside a relationship. It creates comfort, not gravity. Respect is built differently. It is built through standards, through limits, through the quiet communication that your time and energy are not infinite resources available to whoever reaches for them first. The third truth is the one most people meet too late: the appearance of power is often more influential than power itself. Not because people are shallow, although sometimes they are, but because most human interaction happens at the surface. We read signals. We respond to how someone enters a room, how they speak, whether they seem certain or uncertain, whether they pause before answering or rush to fill the silence. The internal reality, how anxious you actually are, how much you're doubting yourself, is largely invisible to others. What they see is the projection. This means that someone with real talent and zero confidence in how they carry themselves will consistently lose opportunities to someone with average talent and complete composure. It's uncomfortable. It also happens to be true. And understanding it gives you a choice: you can resent it, or you can work with it. You can spend your life being quietly excellent and overlooked, or you can learn to inhabit your own presence in a way that allows the excellence to be seen. The fourth truth cuts deeper. Power isolates. Not as a side effect. As a mechanism. When you hold influence over others, when your decisions shape their lives, their income, their futures, they stop telling you the truth. Not all at once. Gradually. Almost imperceptibly. The honest feedback gets softer. The uncomfortable news arrives pre-filtered, pre-softened, pre-shaped to minimize your reaction. The people around you start managing your emotions more than they share their real thoughts. And slowly, without noticing, you become the last person in any room to know what's actually happening. This is why Machiavelli wrote that the prince who surrounds himself with flatterers has already begun to fall. Not because flattery feels bad, it doesn't. It feels wonderful. That's exactly the problem. The leaders, the executives, the parents, the successful people who stop hearing hard truths are not weaker people. They are often the ones who made it easiest to be around them by punishing honesty, even unintentionally. You don't have to be cruel to create an environment where truth becomes dangerous. You just have to make people feel that disappointing you has consequences. And most powerful people do this without ever knowing it. The fifth truth is this: fear is more reliable than love, but only one of them builds something worth having. Machiavelli's most quoted and most misunderstood observation. He wasn't endorsing cruelty. He was making a structural point. People who fear losing something from you will behave consistently. People who love you will behave generously, but only as long as conditions support it. Fear is predictable. Love is contingent. The deeper question, and Machiavelli himself wrestled with this, is what you're trying to build. If you want compliance, fear works. If you want genuine allegiance, a team that stays when things collapse, a partner who chooses you in the worst years, fear corrodes the very thing you need. The brutal truth isn't that one is better. It's that you have to know which one you're actually cultivating, because most people are creating fear when they believe they're inspiring love. The sixth truth is about timing, and it might be the most practically important one: the right move at the wrong moment is just a wrong move. Machiavelli called it virtue, not virtue in the moral sense, but the capacity to read the moment and act precisely within it. How many times have you watched someone with the right idea, the right skills, the right intention, completely fail, because they moved too early, too late, or with the wrong energy for the room? Money and power are not just about what you accumulate. They're about when you act and how you read the forces around you. The person who understands timing doesn't force outcomes. They observe, wait, feel the shift, and move at the exact moment when movement becomes possible. They understand that the world moves in rhythms, and that the most powerful thing you can sometimes do is nothing, until the moment arrives. This is a skill that looks like luck from the outside. From the inside, it is the result of paying very close attention for a very long time. And the seventh truth is the one people resist most fiercely: the rules are different at different levels. Not as a moral argument. As a description of reality. The behaviors that protect a person with nothing are not the same as the behaviors that protect a person with influence. The strategies that build wealth in early stages actively destroy it in later stages. The openness that serves you when you're building trust can make you dangerously exposed when you have real assets to protect. The hunger that drives early success can become the recklessness that dismantles it. Most people learn this too late, after they've applied street-level thinking to a boardroom, or applied the ruthless logic of power to a moment that called for humility and genuine human connection. The brutal truth isn't that the world is unfair, though sometimes it is. It's that the rules shift beneath you as you rise, and most people are playing the last game, not the current one. Now here's the thing about all of this, the part that gets lost when Machiavelli's work gets reduced to manipulation manuals and cold tactical advice. Understanding these truths doesn't make you hard. It makes you clear. And clarity is not the same as cynicism. There is a profound difference between the person who naively believes that goodness alone is enough and watches the world disappoint them over and over, and the person who sees the game exactly as it is, and then consciously chooses how to play it. You can know that appearances matter and still choose to invest in your actual substance. You can know that fear creates compliance and still choose to build something that inspires genuine loyalty. You can know that people gravitate toward utility and still cultivate the kinds of relationships where utility isn't the only thing holding you together. Wisdom about human nature doesn't have to produce coldness. In the right hands, it produces discernment. The most dangerous person isn't the one who reads Machiavelli and becomes calculating. It's the one who reads him and becomes wise enough to know when calculation is exactly what the moment requires, and when it would destroy the only things that actually matter to them. So here is the answer to the question we opened with. Money doesn't corrupt people. Power doesn't corrupt people. What they do is apply pressure, steady, relentless, clarifying pressure, to the existing structure of a person. And under that pressure, whatever was already there becomes more visible, more amplified, more undeniable. The person who was already anxious about their worth becomes controlling. The person who was already generous becomes more so. The person who quietly resented those around them finds, suddenly, the means to stop hiding it. The person who was always kind under easy conditions discovers whether that kindness was character or just convenience. That's what money reveals. That's what power exposes. Not a new version of you, the truest version of you, the one that was always there, waiting for the conditions that would finally make it visible. So the real question, the one underneath all of this, is not about money at all. What are you made of? What would remain if the conditions changed? What would you protect? What would you release? That's not a question about wealth. That's not a question about power. That's a question about who you actually are, before the world got involved in telling you. And maybe the most courageous thing you can do is find out the answer before the pressure arrives to find it for you.